Today's episode is sponsored by Blinkist, the app that lets you read or listen to an entire nonfiction book in just 15 minutes. You can try Blinkist totally free and get 25% off a subscription when you go to Blinkist.com/David Pakman. I've put the link right below this video. Let's get right into it. Normally, I would waste a ton of time at the top of the show talking about the show, but we actually have too much show today. So let's just get right into it. I'm a little worried that there are too many people on the left who are not seriously looking at Joe Biden's proposals and platform, particularly his economic proposals, not looking at them seriously enough and giving credit where credit is due for what, yes, would be the most progressive economic platform of an American president in decades and decades. And I would argue even going beyond the high marginal tax rates of Eisenhower's administration. And I'll explain why in a little bit. There's a very good piece in Market Watch called "Liberals Aren't Giving Joe Biden Credit for a Radical Tax Plan That Goes After the Indolent Rich." The article is by Nick Buffy. We're linking to it on YouTube. I encourage you to read it. And the article accurately points out, as I've been pointing out for months, that there is a contingent of the left that is branding Joe Biden as sort of like the ultimate centrist, the epitome of the Democratic candidate who is almost a Republican or would have been a Republican in times past. I think that that could not be further from the truth. Now, I've said this phrase, it would be the most progressive economic platform in modern political history. And there were people writing to me saying, David, it's meaningless because it's 2020. What? How is that meaningless? It's accurate. Okay, you can say times have changed and our expectations have moved to the left, and that's a good thing. And therefore, it is also a good thing if our elected officials are following the movement of the country politically. And the concern for me is coming partially from, I think that there are some on the left who are just ideologically blinded. And then there are others who just aren't looking at the proposals. So let's focus in on the tax proposals that Joe Biden has. Separate yourself from ideology and separate yourself from what would be the perfect and analyze what is Joe Biden's platform. Joe Biden would raise the corporate profit tax and establish what is effectively a minimum tax for corporations, similar to the alternative minimum tax that people have had individuals have had since 1969. That is radical in a context where both parties have allowed the zero tax dollar status quo of corporations to perpetuate itself. Joe Biden would eliminate deductions for high income earners. Joe Biden would repeal most of the Trump tax cuts and increase taxes on fossil fuel emissions. So Joe Biden would uncap, starting at $400,000, the 12% tax for Social Security. That is absolutely massive. I actually don't think for a moment I'm going to imagine it's not that people don't care. It's that people don't understand the magnitude of that. You would see a CEO who earns $10 million a year go from paying a 0.2% effective Social Security tax to a 12% effective Social Security tax. That is a massively radical proposal, which you will see all sorts of people fight tooth and nail to prevent from becoming a reality. And then Joe Biden would take those revenues and reinvest them in raising Social Security benefits for the poor. That's exactly the type of policy that a Bernie Sanders type would put in place. There are hundreds of thousands of seniors who would be immediately pulled out of poverty as a result of that policy, without it costing the middle class a penny. Some say a dime. I say a penny. As we know, capital gains is something that allows the super rich who don't work to pay less as an effective tax rate than many people who do work. Capital gains, long-term capital gains, taxed at a far lower rate than earned income for the rich. Joe Biden has proposed eliminating that lower capital gains rate on dividends and long-term capital gains for everybody making above $1 million per year. If you combine that with raising the top tax rate back to close to 40%, that is a combination of proposals from Joe Biden, which would nearly double the average tax rate for non-working millionaires. The Tax Policy Center has analyzed this proposal and has found that 3/4 of Joe Biden's tax increases would fall on the 1%, on the top 1%. And a lot of that remaining 25% would fall on the top 2 to 4%. This is serious stuff. This is serious, radical stuff. The people that then come in and say, well, he'll never get it done. But hold on, that's not just Joe Biden. Every president has trouble getting done what they want to do. And you would have to apply that exact same standard, that exact same logic, that exact same caveat to Bernie Sanders. You can say, well, it's not left enough. OK, but say that and recognize that it would be the most progressive economic policy for a sitting president for a long, long time. There will be people who come in and say, but the top marginal tax rate was up in the 90s during Dwight D. Eisenhower's presidency. Yes, but the amount of loopholes available at that time. And remember, the alternative minimum tax was not put in place until 1969. So prior to that, even with these high sticker tax rates under Eisenhower, the very rich were rarely paying anything close to that because of the amount of loopholes and because of the lack of what's called the alternative minimum tax. So you can critique Joe Biden in saying he doesn't go far enough. For example, Joe Biden wants to reinstate some of those state and local tax deductions that Donald Trump got rid of. There is no doubt that there are sort of medium wealthy and super wealthy people in blue states that lost some significant deductions when Trump capped state and local tax deductions. And yes, both the Democratic and Republican Party are beholden to donors, and that is something Joe Biden wants to reinstate. But contrast it with the magnitude of the other things that he's proposing to do. So criticize Joe Biden for not going far enough. Contextualize that we have two very corporate parties that control politics in this country. Do all of that stuff. But let's not be blind because of ideology or laziness or lack of curiosity. These are some pretty radical proposals here. And whether or not Joe Biden can get it done, that's a different question. Trump hasn't gotten done the things he promised. Bernie would not be able to get done the things he wanted to do. Elizabeth Warren would have had, I mean, I don't know how you pass a wealth tax. I really don't. But we have to judge by what the platforms are. And this is very serious stuff. In any case, you are going to have no opportunity if Donald Trump gets another 4 years. This is not, the lesser of two evils. There is clearly a better option here. And it is not a small margin. It is a dramatic margin between what Donald Trump wants to do and has done on taxes and what Joe Biden is proposing. Just the facts, my friends, just the facts. I have some interesting clips for you of Fox News host Chris Wallace calling out Republican Senator Tom Cotton for the obvious, brazen, bold-faced, stunning hypocrisy by Republicans on the replacement of Ruth Bader Ginsburg to the Supreme Court. These clips I'm going to play for you are not notable because we're shocked that Republicans are being hypocrites. The clips are notable because of how casually and comfortably Republicans like Tom Cotton use obvious bad arguments for why they couldn't fill Antonin Scalia's seat back in 2016, but now they should fill Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat with only 45 days remaining before the election. Now, as a reminder, when Antonin Scalia passed away during Barack Obama's presidency, Republicans controlled the Senate as they do now, and they blocked the replacement of Antonin Scalia with Merrick Garland, who was Barack Obama's choice. That was with 9 months before the election. Now we have just 44 days before the election, and Republicans are saying, no, it makes perfect sense for Donald Trump to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So let's get into it. Here is Chris Wallace using Tom Cotton's own words against him, or at least trying to.
Back in 2016, after Justice Scalia died, President Obama named federal Judge Merrick Garland as his new nominee to the court. And as you well know, you were part of the Senate then. Senate Republicans blocked the choice of Garland. Here's what you said at that time.
In a few short months, we will have a new president and new senators who can consider the next justice with the full faith of the American people. Why would we cut off the national debate about this next justice? Why would we squelch the voice of the people? Why would we deny the voters a chance to weigh in on the makeup of the Supreme Court?
Now, Garland was nominated 9 months before the election. And you were saying then, 9 months before the election, it was wrong to deny voters a chance to weigh in. So if it was wrong then, 9 months before the election, why is it okay now, 6 weeks before the election?
So, Chris, in 2014, the American people elected a Republican majority of the Senate to put the brakes on President Obama's judicial nominations. In 2018, we had a referendum on this question. Just a month before the 2018 midterms, we had the vote on Justice Kavanaugh. There could not have been a clearer mandate because the American people didn't just re-elect Republicans, they expanded our majority. They defeated 4 Democratic senators who voted against Justice Kavanaugh. They re-elected the 1 Democratic senator who did vote for Justice Kavanaugh. So we have a clear mandate to perform our constitutional duty. That's what the Senate majority will do now. That's what we did back in 2016 as well.
This is one of the biggest logic pretzels that I've ever seen from Republicans. It actually boggles the mind. If you're not sure what Tom Cotton is talking about, that's exactly the point. It's meant to be confusing. Let's think it through. Tom Cotton says there's no hypocrisy here because right after Kavanaugh's confirmation, there was a midterm election in 2018 and Republicans gained seats showing that the public had no problem with the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh. This is a complete non sequitur. It has nothing to do with the issue at hand. First of all, the Senate only has 1/3 of the seats up for re-election every election cycle. 1/3 of the Senate is up for re-election in any given election year. In 2018, the Senate seats up for re-election favored Republicans. It had nothing to do with some kind of American referendum on whether or not it was okay to fill Brett Kavanaugh's seat. I mean, it has nothing to do with it. It is a complete and total red herring. Secondly, this is about presidents, not senates. They said Obama can't pick someone during his last year. And now they're saying Trump can pick someone during what are the last 44 days before the election. It is incoherent, and Chris Wallace calls him out.
You really don't think there is any hypocrisy at all in saying we need to give voters, because, I mean, you can parse the 2014 election, the 2018 election any way you want, but you stated a pretty firm principle in 2016 about Merrick Garland. It's wrong to deny voters a chance to weigh in. You don't see any hypocrisy between that position then and this position now?
Chris, the Senate majority is performing our constitutional duty and fulfilling the mandate that the voters gave us in 2016 and especially in 2018.
I just want to, I promise this is the last question on this particular subject. Let's do a thought experiment. You're a lawyer. You do hypotheticals, or you did when you were in law school. Let's assume if President Trump were to lose in the election 6 weeks from now, if the Senate were to change hands so that it went from Republicans to Democrats in a lame duck session with a president who'd been defeated and a Republican majority that was about to be out of office, some would say the lamest of lame duck sessions, are you saying you still think it would be proper to vote to confirm President Trump's nominee to the court?
Chris, as I said, we're going to move forward without delay, and there will be a vote on this nominee.
These are just bad people. That's it. Chris Wallace exposes the hypocrisy. He does. I don't know that it matters to the Fox News audience. Donald Trump has coined this new refrain at his rallies, fill that seat, and they are moving forward. And unfortunately, it looks like they're going to have the numbers to do it. So we can't control everything, but we can control voting in November. And we all need to get out and vote to end this insanity. They may get this seat filled. They may not. Ultimately, we can only do so much, and we should do whatever we can do. But they need to be punished. Tom Cotton needs to be punished. Lindsey Graham needs to be punished. He's got an opponent, Jamie Harrison. These people need to be held accountable for their hypocrisy, for their brazen double standards. And Chris Wallace is trying, but they just don't care. At the end of the day, they do not care that they are obvious hypocrites. Let me know your thoughts. I'm on Twitter at @Pakman. Remember, you can get the daily audio podcast anywhere you want. iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora. Don't miss it.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
What if you could read 10 books in just one sitting? That's exactly what one of my favorite apps lets you do. It's called Blinkist, and what they do is take thousands of popular nonfiction books. They condense them down into text or audio that you can consume in 15 minutes. Blinkist makes sure that you're getting all of the important core insights from each book. So it's perfect for exploring a book you otherwise wouldn't have time for. If there's a full book you're thinking about buying, you can use Blinkist to get a sample first. Just think how much you can enrich yourself by being able to soak up an entire nonfiction book in just 15 minutes. I recently read A Brief History of Time, of course, by the great Stephen Hawking. This is a book that I have been aware of for so long, and other things got in the way, and it was fantastic to check it out on Blinkist. Blinkist has books on politics, philosophy, science. They have 27 different nonfiction categories, and a subscription is only about $8 a month, and you get the entire library. But you can try it totally free and get 25% off a subscription when you go to Blinkist.com/David Pakman. I've put the link right underneath this video.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
So Donald Trump has started a new routine where he calls into Fox and Friends every Monday morning. Fox and Friends, of course, is this Fox propaganda morning show. The format is 2 male hosts and a female host, and it's kind of like a mix of completely harebrained, depraved propaganda with the optics of daytime television. And the idea of Trump calling in every Monday is that it's ostensibly good for everybody. Fox and Friends hosts get their FaceTime with the president. Trump gets a softball interview, and everybody is better for it, other than the country and the world. But sadly, it did not go super well yesterday. We're going to look at a few clips and check out the looks on the faces of the hosts of Fox and Friends when Trump goes into these bizarre screeds and unconscionable diatribes. The looks on the faces of the hosts are of people sick to their stomachs. And it actually reminded me, watching these clips, of remember when former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie dropped out of the Republican primary in 2016 and then endorsed Trump, and like the next day showed up and stood behind Trump during one of these stump speeches. And Chris Christie just looked like he had eaten a bad oyster. He looked sick. Same idea here with the Fox host. So let's get right into it. Trump was asked about, of course, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and what is Trump's rationale for trying to push through her replacement before Election Day. And Trump's answer was, well, Democrats would do it if given the chance. Trump also, you will notice, has a terrible phone connection, might even be on speakerphone, just everything going wrong.
Don't forget, we were put in this position by voters, and we have a lot of time. It's not like we have 2 days. We have a lot of time as this goes. Whether it's before or after, I think it should go. We have a lot of time before. I think it should go before. But whether it's before or after, after we have a lot of time, but I think we should do it before. But we
so you might do it in the
Democrats were in the same position. There is zero chance that they wouldn't do it. Just so you understand.
So you're putting it on the
pack the courts.
So if the shoe were on the other foot, if there was a Democratic president and a Democrat Senate, you think they would definitely fill the seat before?
Oh, zero chance that they wouldn't. They would do it. They wouldn't even talk about it.
Fox and Friends host Ainsley Earhardt there trying to help Trump out. Now, this is a terrible argument. Trump has run the country and campaigned for years on elect me because I won't do what Democrats do. Elect me because I won't do what Democrats would do if given the chance. And now Trump says, well, the reason I'm going to do this is Democrats would do it. I thought the point was you don't behave like Democrats. You say Democrats do the wrong thing. And now you're justifying your actions by saying, well, it's what Democrats would do. Very backwards logic. But unfortunately for the Fox crowd, they eat it up like it's being ladle fed to them. Maybe the most disgusting moment of the interview, Donald Trump sort of laughed off Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dying wish that she not be replaced until a new president has been seated, inaugurated. Donald Trump, without any evidence whatsoever, this is sick, says, I don't know if that's true. Adam Schiff might have made that up out of thin air. Nancy Pelosi might have made that up out of thin air. Take a look at this.
Charlie was on our show earlier, and he said we have an obligation to our voters to vote the way they want us to vote. That's why they put us in office. So he's going to push to go ahead and fill the seat either before the election or in the lame duck session. Then you have Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who told her granddaughter on her deathbed, allegedly, that her dying wish was to have the next president choose her successor. How do you think all this plays out?
Well, I don't know that she said that, or was that written out by Adam Schiff and Schumer and Pelosi. I would be more inclined to the second. Okay, that came out of the wind. It sounds so beautiful. But that sounds like a Schumer deal, or maybe a Pelosi or Shifty Schiff. So that came out of the wind. Let's see. I mean, maybe she did and maybe she didn't. Look, the bottom line is we won the election.
Of course, no doubt whatsoever. There's no reason to think that the official story is false. If it were a made up story, it certainly wouldn't be Trump who could tell us, oh, it was Adam Schiff who came up with the story. Imagine the absurdity of this claim. Ruth Bader Ginsburg didn't really say what she said on her deathbed. A random congressman from California, Adam Schiff, made it up. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And again, you look at the online pro-Trump enclaves, they actually say, yeah, Trump might be onto something here. Sounds fake. Doesn't sound real. With 200,000 now dead from coronavirus, and we're going to talk more about this, actually 204,000, Donald Trump says during this bizarre interview, we've turned the corner on the pandemic, and Trump grades his coronavirus response an A+. This was as they were talking, the stock market futures down 700 points because of the resurgence of the virus that's expected. Trump saying we get an A+. Take a look.
You're going to get on Air Force One. You're flying out to Ohio today. You're going to address the fight for the American worker. Ever since the pandemic started and the economy cratered, the Federal Reserve, looking forward, they were a little pessimistic. But a couple of days ago, the Federal Reserve actually was quite optimistic. And in fact, they talked about how right now we're in a situation where we have 3 million more jobs than they thought we would at this stage of the game.
That's right.
And $600 billion more economic activity over and above what they expected just 3 months ago. So while we are still suffering from the pandemic, there is some light at the end of the tunnel.
So we're rounding the corner. With or without a vaccine. They hate it when I say that, but that's the way it is. We're rounding the corner on the pandemic, and we've done a phenomenal job, not just a good job, a phenomenal job, other than public relations, but that's because I have fake news. I can't, you can't convince them of anything. They're fake. But we have done, on public relations, I give myself a D. On the job itself, we take an A+.
A+, Trump says on the virus. Now, reminders, let's come back to earth. Cases per capita, the U.S. is 12th highest in the world. If you take out tiny territories, the U.S. is 8th highest in the world in cases per capita. Deaths per capita, 10th highest in the world is the United States. 8th highest in the world if you exclude tiny territories. Trump says, I get an A+. Trump admits later in this interview that he is playing politics in considering who to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg with, looking at Michigan, looking at Florida, admitting it.
Day, so maybe she gets the nod. Is politics going to be part of it?
I try not to say so. I think probably automatically it is. Even if you're not wanting to do that, it becomes a little automatic. A great one from Michigan. You talked that. As you know, Indiana represented very well. We have from all over the country. I think less so than the person themselves. If you look at...
And then Trump jokes, because everything is a joke, everything is a game, everything is a popularity contest. Trump jokes about putting Fox and Friends host Ainsley Earhardt on the Supreme Court after saying that, Ruth Bader Ginsburg did support me in her decision once. Everything with Trump is what have you done for him?
She was, a legendary legal figure. I'm sure you have some things you'd like to say about how this woman had given decades of her life to public service.
Well, she was a legend, and she represented something different than you or I or somebody else may really agree with or like, frankly. But she was a legend. She represented a certain philosophy, policy, certain groups of laws. She represented them very well and highly respected. She actually voted for me in a very important case, and I was shocked, if you want to know the truth, because we lost a couple of conservative votes, and she actually made it possible to get this approved, which was rather amazing, to be honest with you. I don't want to hurt her reputation at all, but she did vote for me in a case that was a very important case, so that was nice. But no, she was a legendary figure.
Well, I know you said you're going to nominate a woman. That's very important to women who are voting in November for women's rights. You said
How about you, Ainsley? I could nominate you. You don't have to be.
Did not go to law school.
You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be a judge. I could nominate you.
Do you want to make some news right now?
Funny guy, right? But again, it's not a joke that with Trump, it's always about what did the person do for me? What can I expect them to do for me? What do they think about me? Do they like me? Have they helped me? That's what matters to Trump. And again, I don't know if these Fox and Friends interviews do any good, do any harm, but they are stunning from the standpoint of basic human decency. It didn't get much better later last night at one of Donald Trump's 2 rallies in Ohio. Let's talk about that briefly next. So Donald Trump had 2 events yesterday in Ohio, big crowds, lots of virus flying around. And I want to focus in on the second event here. Donald Trump did one event at Dayton's airport and then later drove about an hour north to some other part of Ohio and did an event later on in the day. Donald Trump continues to just lie about coronavirus. Coronavirus has now killed more than 204,000 people in the United States. It doesn't matter. Trump insists he's done great. We're doing great. And he actually has the audacity to say coronavirus affects virtually nobody. That's a quote. 204, almost 205,000 dead Americans. Trump says it affects virtually nobody.
The disease, we didn't know it. Now we know it. It affects elderly people with heart problems and other problems. If they have other problems, that's what it really affects. That's it. In some states, thousands of people, nobody young, below the age of 18, like nobody. They have a strong immune system. Who knows? You take your hat off to the young because they have a hell of an immune system. But it affects virtually nobody. It's an amazing thing. By the way, open your schools. Everybody open your schools.
It affects virtually nobody. Can you imagine? Imagine having lost family members to coronavirus and hearing Trump say it affects virtually nobody. 2 Americans died of Ebola, and Donald Trump called for Barack Obama's resignation. 204,000 Americans have died of this virus, and Trump is saying we get an A+. He said that to Fox News earlier in the day yesterday, and we are seeing the virus affect virtually nobody. You decide whether this is someone who's earned 4 more years. Trump still struggling to just speak English, still unable to pronounce Ulysses S. Grant.
Annie Oakley, William McKinley, and the amazing Ulysses S. Grant. That's good.
That's a sort of like a packaged section of speech that Trump is using a lot, where he just lists American historical figures. The crowd actually seems to like it, and it's not surprising if you look at who's willing to be crowded together for hours right now, given what's going on with the virus, it's not surprising that some of those same people react positively and cheer when Trump just names historical figures. Trump then encouraging the crowd to report unsolicited mail-in ballots to authorities. What? If you're confused, I'm confused. It's unclear what he's actually asking people to do.
The great state of Ohio. So get your friends, get your family, Get your neighbors, get your coworkers, get everybody, and get out and vote. Got to get out and vote. And in your state, in Ohio, early voting has already begun, and don't wait. And when you see them cheating on the other side, I don't say if, when you see them cheating with those ballots, all of those unsolicited ballots, those millions of ballots, you see them, anytime you do, report them to the authorities. The authorities are waiting and watching.
Report unsolicited ballots sent to other people. And importantly, to stay with the facts and to stay with reality, Ohio isn't sending unsolicited absentee ballots. What Ohio decided to do is to send out ballot applications. If you want an absentee ballot, you fill out the application and you send it in, then you'll get a ballot. If you don't, you're not going to get a ballot, plain and simple. Then, as part of the victimization tour that continues, Donald Trump continues to whine and complain that NBC didn't talk about his Nobel Prize nomination. They instead covered the hurricane that was ravaging parts of the country. Take a look.
It's a big deal for our country, right? And she said, oh, that's good. I said, let's turn on the evening news. Let's watch it. This is going to be a big show tonight. Get ready. And NBC, which is one of the most crooked, one of the worst newscasts. And I'm talking about normal NBC, not MSDNC. MSDNC is the worst. But so I turned on NBC with Lester Holt, another beauty. And they start with a hurricane, and then they went to something, and something else. And I'm saying, First Lady, this is getting a little embarrassing. We're 20 minutes into a half-hour show. They haven't mentioned the Nobel Peace Prize. And then it went through the whole show, and they never mentioned. Then I got nominated for a second one. They never mentioned.
Trump actually seems to think that these silly nominations by right-wing politicians, most recently this right-wing politician from Norway nominated Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. He thinks that's real news when there's a hurricane ravaging people's homes and lives in different parts of the country. It's the epitome of self-centeredness and narcissism that has become, unfortunately, commonplace in American politics. And then for the second straight election cycle, Trump is campaigning on all the same stuff. He's campaigning on middle income tax cuts. He's campaigning on build a wall. He's president now. Why can't he do it now? Take a look.
That's got a seat. It's got a seat in. And we have a lot of new things, including additional substantial middle income tax cuts and other tax cuts and tremendous regulation cuts. And we're finishing up with our military. You know, we're building Space Force. The wall is going incredibly. It's going.
This is part of something we've been covering for a little while now, which is Trump is running like he's not the president. Elect me and I'll do tax cuts. Elect me and I'll do health care reform. I'll replace Obamacare. I'll build a wall. I'll fix the suburbs. I'll do whatever. He's been president for 4 years. Why hasn't he done these things already? He controlled the House and Senate for the first 2 of those years. He's had the Senate all 4 years. We need to reelect him to get him to do anything. It doesn't make sense. And then in barely concealed racism, Donald Trump says that if Joe Biden wins, Biden, as well as black Senator Cory Booker, are going to destroy the suburbs.
You know, I ended a regulation that will destroy suburbia. If Biden got in, they will destroy the suburbia. We call it suburbia of the world, and we love it. I know it well. Westchester County, the suburban, they sometimes, if you say suburban housewife, you're in deep trouble. So what you do is you say suburban women. They love me. You know why? They want security, and they don't want projects being right next to their house. That's okay. They don't want it. And by the way, that includes minorities, because 29 to 30% of the suburban communities are minorities, and that includes them. They don't want that. They want safe communities. They want great communities. They don't want to lose the American dream. It's very simple. I got rid of the regulation from Obama, Biden, that was destroying suburbia. Okay? Destroying it. And I think suburbia has got to wake up because if they get in, you know who's in charge? You know who's in charge of the program? Cory Booker. Cory Booker.
The crowd doesn't have any idea what Trump is talking about. I can assure you, it doesn't matter. They'll still cheer sort of half-heartedly. And one bonus clip from Trump's earlier event where he was in Dayton, Ohio, Trump tells just a never-ending story. It's 5 minutes long. I'm only going to play 40 seconds for you. Trump goes on an incoherent, unintelligible story about why steam power is better than electric power for military ships. I can't make heads or tails out of this, but notice how the crowd is silent. They don't have any idea what this guy's talking about.
The admirals a lot. I got a lot of admirals. I like the admirals. I want to meet with the catapulters. Sir, what would you want to meet with the catapulters for? I want to find out why the hell the catapulters don't work. So I went there, and you know, they did a new system. It's electric. It's all electric. So instead of steam, which is simple and great, and powerful, and good, and they know how it works for years and years, they decide to go all electric. Now, if you take a little glass of water, take this glass of water, you throw it on, and that's the end of that. You bring somebody in from MIT. How the hell do you fix it? And we're dealing with the ocean and rockets being shot at the ship and rough stuff, right? But it wasn't working.
It went on and on from there. I'm not going to subject you to all of it, but these events, bizarre in every way, and in particular, I said this yesterday, kindergarten and first grade teachers, they don't know how to get the whole class to sit silently. Trump has figured out how to do it with a crowd of 1,000. He can get them to just be silent, almost still, like not moving, with these bizarre non sequitur stories. And we are going to see many more of these rallies this week, leading up, of course, to the first presidential debate next Tuesday. I will be streaming live starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time next Tuesday. I would love it for you to watch the debate with me. We will be live on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. That's next week. In the meantime, more coverage of these whacked rallies on our Instagram page, David Pakman Show, and follow me on Instagram at david.pakman to see a picture of the beautiful cake that YouTube sent me for our 1 million subscriber milestone. A gigantic cake. They sent me a cake that would normally feed 30 people. There's a picture of it on my Instagram. David.Pakman. Quick break. Back after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
The David Pakman Show depends on your support, and the easiest way is through membership, which includes the world-famous bonus show, as well as commercial-free audio and video streams of the show just for members. Sign up today at joinpakman.com. Coupon code saves you 40%. Vote soon 18.
Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
It's great to welcome back to the program today Thomas Frank, who is author of The People Know, A Brief History of Anti-Populism, also author of Listen Liberal and What's the Matter with Kansas, and other books. It's great to have you back on today.
You know, David, it is my pleasure.
So let's pick a place to start, because we could start in many different places. Do you believe that the Democratic Party as an institution has accurately ascertained why Donald Trump won in 2016?
Well, no, of course not. They've done anything but examine that. They've been in denial ever since that election. Now, I think that there is some that they understand it, and it's not hard to understand. You know, you've got this large group of voters that has been shifting over to the Republican Party for a long time. And in reaction to, you know, these very predictable things, not predictable, but visible, I should say, very highly visible developments. So it's not like it's hard to understand what's going wrong, but they are, you know, you think about they spent several years investigating investigating Trump's supposedly being some kind of Russian agent, collusion with the Russians, and whether or not that. Look, Trump's administration is corrupt 8 ways to Sunday, but the intention there was always to try to somehow pin the election results on this outside actor, and in this way dismiss what happened. And so, no, they haven't, and they've done anything but reckon with what happened in 2016, except for in one way. But it's more subconscious than anything else, and that is the choice of Joe Biden. I mean, Biden is actually. I think he's more interesting than other people do, because he does come from this sort of old school, working class background, or at least they tell us that all the time. And he used to call himself middle class Joe, and he rides the Amtrak and on and on and on. And so, in that respect, they have chosen someone who they think will bring back the sort of manufacturing areas that they lost, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, maybe even Ohio. And we shall see. But Biden is basically the one man they could choose to do that job without actually going to a sort of Bernie Sanders kind of figure.
Yeah, and one of the things that I found interesting is that there's no candidate that is beyond critique. I am against the deification of any elected official. These are just people, and sometimes we'll agree with them and sometimes we'll disagree with them. But I think that not enough attention has been paid, which is why I've been trying to pay attention to some of the interesting policy proposals that Joe Biden is putting forward, where, I mean, listen, when you look at uncapping Social Security tax at $400,000, that's huge. That's radical in some circles.
A good idea, but that's not. No one's going to notice that, or
Yeah, no. So that's my question, which is, what is there no piece of the electorate that actually cares about something like economic policy?
Oh my God. Well, of course they do care, but only when you deliver the results. I mean, of course look. Everybody is. My grand theory about what's been happening in politics, and I've been writing about it. These many years, is that we are in fact furious about economic developments. Ever since the early 1980s, this country has, for most people, been on a downhill, on a toboggan ride to nowhere. The middle class society that I was born into is long gone. People are furious about it, deindustrialization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No, people don't understand the nuts and bolts of how that was done. But they do get the big picture. Absolutely, they get it. But they, something like that, it's going to be. I mean, you can explain it to people in a way that makes sense and that is actually compelling. That the rich should pay their fair share, et cetera. But you've got to have a whole vision, a whole understanding of the situation that people are in. You can't just promise technocratic fixes that will, that'll make the machine run slightly more smoothly. And I hate to say it, but this is kind of Donald Trump's strength, is that he talks like, he's constantly complaining, even though he's president.
Yeah,
he complains constantly. I was just reading something the other day where he was actually blaming some policy disaster on Biden, and it's something that's like happening right now. And it's like, how could Biden is like, in his basement in Delaware. He hasn't been in office in years. How could he possibly be held responsible? Well, this is just Trump's way of talking,
Well, I wanted to ask about that because I did a segment a couple of weeks ago talking about how Donald Trump has adopted rhetoric of, even though he's president, running as if someone else is president and you should elect him. He's like, if you reelect me, I'll build the wall, I'll fix taxes, I'll do healthcare.
But he thinks this way, or he appears to. I mean, I don't know how much how much emphasis you should put on his Twitter feed, but here's a guy that keeps talking about how somebody should do something about Google.
Right.
It's like, dude, you're the president. Just, call your attorney general into the room and instruct him to go get those guys. It's really not hard.
But my question about the running as if he's not president is, who is that tailored to appeal to? Is that tailored to appeal to people who aren't paying close attention? Is it tailored to appeal to his existing base, to moderates? What is it about?
Well, clearly the first criteria is people who, as you just said, who aren't paying much attention, because it's that one. That doesn't. I don't think that works for very many people. That's a silly little psychological trick that I think is not going to succeed. I mean, look, this guy is. There's also a bit of wish fulfillment there. This guy is his tenure in office has been nothing short of disastrous. I mean, look where we are.
Yes,
hundreds of thousands of people have died. The economy is basically shut down. You've got protests and violence in the streets all over the place, and some president, this guy, he can't do anything about any of it, or he could, but he's just utterly incompetent and unsuited to the office. I'm 55 years old, David, and we've seen some incompetent presidents. I often think of Jimmy Carter, who just got so badly swamped after one term in 1980. And this guy is way beyond that. Jimmy Carter looks really wonderful by comparison to Donald Trump. Jimmy Carter really cared. He was really trying hard. It's just nothing worked for him, But this guy, oh my God, he doesn't have any idea what he's doing.
We're going to pause our conversation with Thomas Frank there. The entire conversation will be available on the David Pakman Show YouTube channel this weekend at youtube.com/The David Pakman Show.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
The David Pakman Show depends on the support of our viewers and listeners, and one way to keep us going is through Patreon, where you can pledge as little as $1 per month or as much as you want at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Great perks and benefits as well. Read about them.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
This next story is absolutely insane. It's dystopian. It's really straight out of A Handmaid's Tale, much like some of the people Donald Trump is considering for the Supreme Court to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, although we'll get to them on tomorrow's show. But it is now alleged that the United States in 2020 under Donald Trump is performing forced sterilization, unwanted hysterectomies on women detained by Donald Trump's ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. Forced sterilization is what we are talking about here. PRISM has learned, according to a source familiar with the situation, that gynecologist Mahendra Amin, based in Georgia, has been performing forced sterilizations. As per PRISM, the organizations Project South, the Georgia Detention Watch, Georgia Latino Alliance for Human Rights, and South Georgia Immigrant Support Network have filed a complaint on behalf of immigrants detained by the United States, detained inside of ICDC, which is operated by private prison company LaSalle Corrections. And the organization alleges that 5 women, could be more, but this specific complaint refers to 5 women, sterilized at the facility between October and December of last year. Dawn Wooten, a licensed practical nurse employed by ICDC, is the whistleblower. And she says, I've had several inmates tell me that they've been to see the doctor and they've had hysterectomies and they don't know why they went or why they're going. A spokesperson for the Southern Poverty Law Center, which has represented people detained there, confirmed to prison that Dr. Amin saw multiple women represented by the organization. The spokesperson couldn't currently confirm the extent of the appointments. And according to the whistleblower in the Project South complaint, Amin recently took out the wrong ovary on a detained woman. The women do not appear to be consenting to getting hysterectomies. They are not receiving translation services. Many times there are language barriers. When they are getting complicated medical information conveyed to them, they have no translator. Sometimes nurses are reportedly communicating using Google Voice on their phones to translate, Google Translate on their phones rather, or by asking other detainees to translate. That's not how we do things, or I thought we weren't doing things that way in the United States. And one woman was given 3 different explanations about what is being done to her medically. This is some of the ugliest stuff that we've heard of. If you go back and look at U.S. history, there is an ugly history of reproductive injustice in the United States. The Tuskegee experiment used African-American sharecroppers to test and understand syphilis, with researchers refusing to tell patients that they have syphilis or to treat them in order to see what happens with untreated syphilis. Men were denied treatment and many died or went blind or insane. The American doctors behind the birth control pill first tested the birth control pill on low-income Puerto Rican women. There have been nationwide eugenics campaigns targeting wide swaths of people for sterilization because they were considered undesirable. So there's a history of this, and it's happening now, and it gets even worse. The doctor, Dr. Mahendra Amin, appears not to even be a board-certified OBGYN. They are a gynecologist, but a spokesperson for the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology said to the Daily Beast that according to their records, Dr. Mahendra Amin is not even certified. Now, it's sort of like the icing on the cake, right? Shocker that the Trump administration's choice of doctor for forced sterilizations is not board certified, but it's just another detail in the insanity. ICE is not commenting about the certification of Dr. Amin. And we are in the process of trying to figure out what the hell is going on here. The obvious question is Dr. Amin going to be prosecuted? Probably not. Is he going to be made Surgeon General? Seems like as reasonable of a question given the insanity of this administration. This really is this is concentration camp stuff. If it's even a fraction of what's being alleged, it is the worst of the worst. And we really need to remind ourselves as a country that we have committed atrocities in the past and we've made improvements, but things are still going on. We can't put our guard down for a moment. The vigilance must stay. And when you let lunatics in power, bad things happen. It's not just elections have consequences. It's also not paying attention even for a moment has major consequences. Human rights abuses. It's dystopian. I'm almost at a loss for words. And unfortunately, we are repeating some of the worst things from American history right now. It's having an effect on our reputation. And that's what I want to talk about next. We've been speaking on the program about the United States as a global laughingstock under Donald Trump. This is not just something I say. It's the truth, and we have new data. Sometimes when I talk about the United States as a laughingstock under Trump, people write in and say, David, the world respects Trump. The world knows Trump does what's best for us, and they don't like that because we win and maybe they lose. No, the reputation of the United States is in the toilet. There's a new Pew Research Center study. Since Donald Trump took office as president, the image of the United States has hugely suffered. In many countries, the United States reputation is at a record low, looking at the last 20 years. If you look at the UK, France, Germany, Japan, Canada, Australia, in every single one of those countries, favorability for the United States is the lowest it has been in 20 years. It is at the worst point now that it was throughout the entire Bush presidency, Obama presidency, and Donald Trump presidency. Right now is the low point. The numbers were already atrocious during the first 3 years of Trump's presidency, but it is coronavirus and Donald Trump's completely failed response that has really hurt him in the last 6 months. Only 15% of 13 major countries think the United States has done a good job handling coronavirus. If you look at a chart of confidence in the American president over time among Western European countries, you see that it sort of trended down under Bush. Trust in the American president was much higher in Western Europe during Barack Obama, and then it dropped even lower during Donald Trump than it was during the George W. Bush administration. And it makes a lot of sense if you pay attention to what's going on. Now, very interesting, if you look at trust in Trump versus trust in other leaders across these 13 countries, this is based on Australia, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Netherlands, South Korea, Spain, Sweden, and the UK. Across those 13 countries, you see that the least trusted leader is Donald Trump. 83% across those 13 countries have no confidence in Donald Trump, followed by President Xi of China and Putin of Russia. In other words, Putin and Xi are more trusted than Donald Trump. On the other end, Germany's Angela Merkel is the most trusted at 76%, followed by French President Emmanuel Macron, and then Boris Johnson. It is not about left or right. Boris Johnson and Angela Merkel, and even Macron, are no extreme liberals. It is not about that. The world recognizes Trump is a buffoon who cannot be trusted. They think we're stupid for voting such a clown into office. Remember that Trump said on Twitter back in 2014, we need a president who isn't a laughingstock to the entire world. We need a truly great leader, a genius at strategy and winning. Respect. That tweet has never been more relevant than it is today. Trump is less popular and less trusted than Vladimir Putin and President Xi of China. This is a pathetic joke, but it's a joke that could last 4 more years. The whole we should research taking bleach internally, that was quite a low point, even by applying the most generous standards to Donald Trump. And it has been downhill from there. And things are so bad. I would actually ask conservatives, do you really want to defend Trump 4 more years? Or wouldn't you be better off just attacking Biden for the next 4 years? Like from the standpoint of putting them in positions of having to defend the indefensible, it almost seems to me that it would be better for them to spend the next 4 years just criticizing Biden than continuing to defend the absolute embarrassment that has been Donald Trump's administration. I don't know. Let me know what you think. We have a voicemail number. That number is 219-2-DAVID-P. More and more people asking about moving out of the country. Take a listen to this.
Hi, David. So I've been so terrified of the possibility of Trump getting another 4 years that I've been thinking pretty seriously about how I would try to leave the country, leave the USA, and live in a different country if that were to happen.
Yeah.
I just think it would be safer. So I'm wondering if you have any advice for people who want to do that. Do you remember anything about your own immigration from Argentina that could be useful to somebody who is thinking about immigrating away from the United States?
Well, yes. What I remember is that there's a reason why most people don't do it. We've heard many times before, if Bush gets reelected, I'm moving to Canada. If Obama gets reelected, I'm moving. I don't know where they would go. But in any case, most people don't do it because it's insane. I mean, it's really a difficult thing. As someone who came to the United States still young enough to quickly learn the language and culture, it is a really big thing to abandon your home. And this is why, we shouldn't take lightly the fact that people are willing to come to the United States, even illegally. Understand the cataclysmic change that this represents from them. It is an unimaginable change. And I would be lying if I said I'm thinking of relocating permanently if Donald Trump gets reelected. But the truth is that it is, particularly now with the mobile studio, where I can basically have the exact same sound and video quality no matter where I go. I am certainly thinking of, if Trump gets reelected, we'll be here covering the lame duck period and of course the reelection. inauguration rather. But I am looking at spending some months doing the show from somewhere else. And I understand that not everybody can do that. Not everybody's jobs are mobile. Not everybody can afford it. But it is something I am looking at just to get a break, just to get a break from being in a place where constantly just idiocy is happening. So I think that very few people are really going to move out of the United States if Trump is reelected, partially because it's really cataclysmic change in one's life, partially because it's really hard to do it. You can't just move to a lot of the places that I think most Americans would look to move to if they are trying to avoid Donald Trump. But certainly I'd be lying if I said it's not occurring to me to get a break from the United States if Donald Trump does get reelected. But we're going to continue talking about that, and I'm interested in hearing from the audience about it. Don't miss today's bonus show. There's another show for our members. Membership is our #1 funding source. Grab a membership at joinpakman.com, and I'll see you on today's bonus show. Thanks so much for watching today's full episode of the show. Just a reminder, today's sponsor is Blinkist, the app that lets you read or listen to an entire nonfiction book in just 15 minutes. You can try Blinkist for free and save 25% off of a subscription when you go to Blinkist.com/David Pakman. I've also included the link right underneath this video.